Bhagavad Gita 6.16 Natyashnatastu yogosti na chaikantamanashnataha na chati swapnashilasya jagrito naiva charjuna. Natyashnatastu, one who eats too much. Yogosti, that the person cannot practice yoga. Na chaikantam anashnataha and na cha ekantam anashnataha. If one goes to the other extreme and eats too little, then also one cannot practice yoga. Na chati swapnashilasya, nor if one ati swapnashilasya, if one sleeps too much, or jagrito naiva cha Arjuna, or if one stays awake for too long. So either way, one cannot practice yoga. So here Krishna is talking about the need for balance while practicing yoga. The purpose of yoga ultimately is to transcend the bodily misidentification. It is ultimately to live in the light of our nature as souls. But we cannot come to that level overnight. And while we are striving to come to that level, we need to maintain a balance. Now, these two activities which I mentioned are fundamental activities, and they are essential for the very survival of the body. We cannot live without sleeping, and we cannot live without eating. Just as we could say the plants require both water and sunlight for their survival, similarly, we need both these things. And if we don't have these, then body itself will not be there for very long. And then after that, there will be no success in yoga. So, as we discussed, Shariram Dharma Sadhanam. The body is a tool for Dharma Sadhanam, for the pursuit of Dharma. And to the extent the body is disrupted, to that extent, Dharma Sadhana definitely gets disrupted. Now, how do we define here Ati? Nati ashnatastu yogos, tivacha ekantam anashnata. So Ati essentially means extremes, excess. Ati sarvatra varjayet. In all things, excess needs to be avoided. That's a Vedic Subhashita. Subhashita is a good saying. Now, Nati ashnatastu, here what is being said is, with respect to eating, not too much, not too little, not too much sleeping, not too little sleeping. If we consider the engagement in these activities to be like a pendulum, then we could say that this verse is stating that we should avoid both the extremes in the pendulum. The extreme of too much or extreme of too less. Now, how much exactly will be too much or how much exactly will be too less will vary according to individual. Because ultimately, each one of us has a distinct body. And due to having a distinct body, which is of its own nature, we will have, to some extent, different needs. And actually, we can all make out from our own experience. From our own experience, we can make out how much is the too much for us. When we overeat, then we feel sleepy. When we feel lethargic, we feel completely de-energized after eating. And that is a fair indication that we have overindulged in it. Similarly, with respect to other things also with respect to sleeping. In general, after sleeping, when we wake up, we should feel fresh, and there is some natural human lethargy about waking up after sleeping. That we just don't want to. We just want to keep on sleeping, but overall, if there is intolerable tiredness, then one needs more sleep. And on the other hand, if we sleep too much, then even after sleeping, we feel tired. We feel lethargic. We don't feel rejuvenated by our tiredness. We feel irritated, bored, and unenthused, unenergized. Now, with respect to the practice of yoga, this is important because you may say that at one level, this is simply just basic human requirement that one should be able to balance oneself like this. But yes, it is a human requirement, and this is one of the first lessons we do learn in our lives. Now, how much we imbibe may vary according to person, but we all learn in the harmful effects of excessive eating, for example. Now, this is being talked about by Krishna here, especially not just as a general prescription for balanced eating or sleeping, but in the context of yoga. So that context of yoga we will talk about in the next verse. In this verse, this discussion, let's focus on how do we determine the balance. One criteria could be phalena parichayate. We observe the fruit. We observe the fruit and we learn by observation. Our body is like a vehicle for us, and we have to use it. No one else is going to use it, and no one else can handle it for us. Others can give us some tips about how to handle it. And yes, if something is wrong in the body, there may be others who are far more expert than us to fix it. It's like when a car is damaged, we take it to a garage to get it repaired from a mechanic. So like that, we take the body to a doctor to get it repaired when it has some problems. So certainly with respect to technicalities, there are others who may know better than us. But with respect to the practical living, the hands-on driving, we could say, and it is we who have to do it. And to the extent we learn how best our body works, what it needs, and what is too little and what is too much. So to the extent we learn that, to that extent we'll be able to operate the bodily machine productively, effectively. Now, what determines what exactly is the balance? You need to know that the balance is something which, first of all, you have to know that it is my responsibility to learn. I can read some books, I can teach, I can talk, get some guidance from some guides, some counselors, but it is once we take responsibility, this is my body, and handling it most productively is my responsibility. Once we take up that ownership of handling the body effectively, then we will also start learning. Okay, this is too much, this is too little, and by that we can avoid the extremes. Another important point to recognize is that the state of balance may not always be frozen balance. Life is dynamic, and because life is dynamic, balance also is dynamic. It is not that what is the balance state on one day will always be the balance state throughout our life. Sometimes we may have deadlines to meet, and that too, those times we may sleep less. Other times, we may have, say, we may live in a area where there is famine, or for some other reason there is shortage of food, and we may endure that. So when we talk about dynamic balance, that means that sometimes one may have to go out of balance. So one goes out of balance to eventually return to the state of balance later. But the idea is just like if a person is going by cycle, the vertical state is the balance state. But if one has to turn right, then the tilted state is the right state. And then again, when I have to turn left, and again being tilted towards the left is the right state. So, but once we have turned left, and if we stay tilted left, then again we'll simply go in a circle. So on a cycle, the balance state is not always necessarily a vertical state. It can be a tilted state also, as long as it keeps us moving. So we can have some general principles, general plans, general principles. Okay, I'll sleep 6 hours or 7 hours or whatever my body needs. But beyond that, rather than sticking to some rigid rule, over a period of time we can take inventory. And in some cases we may need more. In some cases we may need less. We may be able to do with less. So by observing our own body, taking responsibility for learning how to deal with the body, and by being willing to be flexible according to time, place, circumstance, but keeping in mind that eventually we have to return to the balance state. So that it's like we tilt the cycle left, but then again bring it vertical. So like that, by seeking a dynamic balance, we can avoid extremes in our handling of the body. Thank you.